Hi kittens, I'm Julie Savone, psychedelic facilitator, integration expert, and your guide for this wild ride, the Inner Trip, 365 days with plant medicine. I've helped hundreds of people use plant medicine, primarily psilocybin, to heal, expand, and step into their next level. But this year, I'm taking it even deeper. For the next 365 days, I'm bringing you with me. I'll be microdosing, journeying, integrating, and exploring what it really means to live a limitless life, with plant medicine as a tool, not a crutch. So if you're ready to feel more alive, more clear, more limitless, and you're down to do it with mushrooms and a little bit of sass, you're in the right place. Let's take the inner trip. Let's go, girls. I'm just kidding. Well, maybe. Are there men who listen to this podcast? I don't know. Asking for myself. If you are a man listening to this podcast, I've never received a DM from anyone who wasn't identified as a man. I have never received a text from any of my male identifying friends. So if you are a man listening to this podcast, let me know. I would love the feedback. But yeah, let's get into it. My intention today is for a little chisme. Actually, it's not really a chisme sesh. I just want to have a chat with you about when you are not feeling it. Because I'll be completely honest, today I am not feeling it. And we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to show up in a certain way. And we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to figure out, like, why are we not feeling well? And we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to shift and to feel a certain way instead of allowing what is. And so I was thinking about today's episode. I record earlier in the week. Today as I record, obviously it's not going to come out today, but it is Lunar New Year. And sometimes whether it's about like professional obligations or commitments, because I don't view this as an obligation, but I do view it as a commitment that I made to myself to make a weekly podcast and to show up no matter what, whether it be that the commitment or this pressure from an outside event, right? Like, it's Lunar New Year, like this is the time, it's the year of the horse. And I'm a Sag rising, so Sages are supposed to have a pretty freaking good year, which I'm excited about. But today I am not feeling it, and that is okay. And I think if we could take on more of that attitude of like, it's okay to not be feeling it, instead of forcing and performing and psychoanalyzing and going down this rabbit hole of analysis paralysis, that actually, A, the feeling of like not feeling it would pass sooner, and B, our level of neuroses would really just like decrease quite a bit. So let's buckle in for this conversation. This is how crazy today is off to. I have 2 beverages with absolutely no complementary flavor pattern. I have blackberry lemonade Waterloo. Waterloos are my preferred bubbly water. Sound off, send me your preference, but I'll tell you, I think it has the right amount of flavor. And then I never get like flavored coffee. It's just not for me. I find it, I don't know, really, really sugary. So I'll always ask for half sweet, but they had some cool flavor profiles at this coffee shop. I just met my gal pal for a little chat. And I thought I asked for strawberry shortcake. I think they gave me chocolate covered strawberry, because it definitely has some mocha in it. But you know what? I like it either way. It's a fun little shake up. So today I just woke up. I don't know. It wasn't even that I woke up. It was a little bit that I woke up. I woke up feeling a little foggy. I just felt like not that clear. And it's funny because I do feel like I've been sort of battling a cold and like maybe grazing into like, am I getting sick? Am I having a cold? So I felt a little foggy. And then this is a little Julie neuroses, a little peek behind the curtain, but my schedule started at a 30. I had my first call at a 30 instead of like on the hour. And I don't know what it is about that, man, but I feel like there's nothing I can do like before the call starts and like complete it, which is again one of my little like, I like to complete things, I like to close the loop. And it just kind of, I feel like it made my day feel a little wobbly. Although the call was great itself. I love the call. I love the women I'm working with one-on-one right now. I feel like everyone I work with is a really ideal client, and I'm really happy I've gotten to this point in my business. I will say that being selective with who you work with really pays off, because you think it's just about, at least this is how I felt, right, in the earlier days of my business, of like acquiring clients, like, oh, you want the money, you want the revenue in your business. But the money is never worth a misaligned energy exchange and the drain that comes from coming on a call with a client where you're just like, this is not the right fit for me. So I'm very grateful for the women that I get to work with, and how awesome they are. And after our call, my one-on-one clients get to have these customized integration texts. So basically I look at our call transcript and I program 2 weeks of text, because I have calls every other week. I feel like that's the perfect amount of time to talk through stuff and then actually have you go embody it and live it, and come back. And that's the sweet spot that I found for my clients in this process that I take them through, because there is like a structure, there is a framework. I took the framework from my one-to-one and I turned it into the course portal Limitless Woman. So there's a framework and a process that we're following, and it's also like in the moment stuff as it comes up, right? So within the framework, we've also talked about, this is a newer client. We've talked about some conflict with her friend. We've talked about she's dating and kind of assessing, where does she fall in the relationships. And I really enjoy those calls, and I like the process of creating her custom integration text for the next few weeks. And then I was going to meet a friend for coffee. She's been going through it with some stuff in her personal life, and just catching up and supporting her. And I came back and it's like, okay, like there are things that I get to do in my business. And one of them was recording a podcast. I think part of the reason I felt a little off is I wanted to record a podcast this weekend. One of my best friends was here, and I thought it would be cool for her to interview me, right, as one of my best friends. And ultimately I couldn't find like a good recording studio for both of us to go to. It's just like, okay, well, that was going to be the podcast for this week. And then I'm thinking like, okay, what am I going to talk about instead? And I thought about answering some more Q&As. I know there are a lot of questions out there. I've really enjoyed the Q&A episodes. We've done a couple of them thus far. I thought about, when I first started the podcast, I put out a lot of little polls on Instagram about like, what would you like to see me talk about? And so a very popular response was like how to rewire limiting beliefs using science. And I thought about coming on here and talking about that. But ultimately, what was true for me in the moment, and kind of the beauty, I think, of this particular podcast and the experiment that I'm running, a year of intentional psychedelic use, is just to be honest in the process, in the moment, of what's true and what's real. And, not everyone was built to thrive in this 40-hour work week. I think that mostly that's built for men, and there's more science around how it is something that really like benefits men, and then the hormonal cycle that a man goes through versus a woman. And that the women truly are built different from a biological perspective. And so thinking about how sometimes I've forced myself in business, because I am running a business, right, to show up in this sort of more structured way, and that I could give myself the permission to not. And that was also something I was kind of like toying with back and forth, like I could not this week. And I thought, what a beautiful opportunity instead to show up and to be real with you in these moments, because I've definitely swung both ways on the pendulum. So on the one hand, you have being a lawyer, which is just one of the most time-consuming and demanding professions. So, you hear, maybe you haven't, but definitely in the legal world, there is like this, we talk about billable hours, and if you want to make partner, you have to have so many billable hours, and just feeling really like the crunch to show up and do more. And we even think about like law school itself, right? So law school is graded on a curve, and then it becomes inherently competitive because you can only do well at the expense of someone else. And when I sit back and really reflect on that, it just totally goes against my core value. Like one of my top values is win-win, meaning I don't believe I can actually fully win unless other people win, unless we all win, right? So if one of my successes has to come at the expense or detriment of someone else, to me, that is not a true win. That is extraction. I believe that life gets to be collaborative. Of all my psychedelic journeys and experiences, I see the ways that we are all connected, that we are all intermingled. And what you do unto someone else, you really do unto yourself. Did Jesus say that? It's a big principle of collectivism. I'm actually asking, I can't remember, but I think Jesus said, do unto others as you would do unto yourself, but also literally what you do to others, you do to yourself. You do as a reflection of yourself. I was at a party once with this just adorable soul, and I said to her, oh my gosh, you're so awesome or cute or cool or something. She was great. She's a photographer in LA, and she goes, well, so are you. You can only see that in me because you see it in you. And that moment was just like a mirror, obviously, but just a light bulb experience of thinking that all the good I see in others is only accessible to me because it is reflecting something that I see in myself. And conversely, the things that really like get your goat and trigger you and stir the pot for you are things that you also witness in yourself. There's a really cool breakthrough exercise. Actually, I was this one-to-one client, the same one that I work with today. She was having this tough experience with a friend. And so we went through this exercise of like, okay, I want you to list out everything. And I've done this with plenty of people, exes, tough relationships, listing out every single thing that you dislike about this person, right? These qualities, selfish, whatever. Listing out everything you like about them. Because, if they're in your life in some way, even if they're not in your life, even if they're someone that like, I'll be completely honest, sometimes there are people on the internet who like maybe we're in certain spaces together, whether it be a program or whatever, they don't really know. I don't really know them, right? I'm not aware of all these things, but they bother me for some reason. But there has to be things that I admire about them too. Like no person is 100% good, bad, or otherwise. I know that can be hard to think about sometimes in our current political climate, but I do feel like there are always things that we can admire or think could be useful even if they were in other contexts. So regardless, make out all these lists and then think about how you embody these qualities yourself, right? Because at the end of the day, if there's a quality that you don't like in someone, you can see it somehow reflected into you and things that you do. And thinking about how all of the qualities benefit you and harm you, and the qualities in yourself, how they benefit others and harm others. And so through this exercise, it's a lot of perspective giving. It really lessens the emotional charge you have toward people. And it brings a greater sense of humility too. Because I know Jesus was all about, let he is without sin cast the first stone. And so coming back to this idea of like not feeling it, I think what oftentimes happens, especially in Western culture, is when we're not feeling, we have a lot of guilt and judgment. So there is this really awesome study Dr. David Hawkins did, and if we've ever worked together before, you've definitely heard me talk about this. I reference it quite a bit because I think it's a really great visual representation of, pause for a sip. Also, maybe I'm not feeling it because maybe I'm dehydrated. I'm trying to think about how much water I've had today. Okay, so David Hawkins, what he does is he maps the frequency of emotion. So, you're having an emotion, you're experiencing an emotion, and he maps the energetic frequency of them. So at the top, as you might imagine, joy, bliss, enlightenment, all these things. Yes, good. So those have the most energy, right? They're the most energy giving. In the middle of this chart are things like neutrality, right? Objectivity. And then a little bit above that, curiosity. And then at the bottom, the ones that have very little energy, very little ability to move, to shift, low frequency, are feelings of shame, guilt, and judgment. Judgment toward yourself and judgment toward others. And so I like to paint people this picture around why I don't think guilt and shame and judgment are useful. Because at the end of the day, like, my paradigm is not good or bad or right or wrong. Good or bad are obviously qualitative judgments. We can't make them. Like, there's no empirical guideline for good and bad. What feels good or bad to me could be very different from you, and that does not make me right and you wrong, or vice versa. And conversely, right or wrong, like, I really feel like we have to reserve those terms for empirical things that we can know with absolute certainty. I feel like I'm really going down a lot of different slides today in this story, but I do want to take a quick diversion. So I have a friend who works with a Native American tribe, and I don't want to like say the name and cause too much uproar because I think some people are going to have a really strong feeling to this story that I'm about to tell, so I'll just keep it vague. but the tribe has a sun ceremony in the summer, and I'm not going to get too into what the sun ceremony is. But it is a Native American tradition, traditionally for the warriors of the tribe. And my friend is a veteran, and he has worked a lot with this tribe for his own healing. And he was sharing with me about the sun ceremony and stuff that the parts of the practice of the ceremony itself. And he shared one part of the practice with me that I just when I heard it, I was filled with so much judgment and so much righteousness, which is not a good feeling. I don't particularly like to feel self-righteous, but I was feeling it. I was feeling it big time that day. And the story that he told me was that in the sun ceremony, the night before the ceremony begins, they will sacrifice a puppy and they will eat the puppy in stew, right? And I just heard this. I was enraged, my blood was boiling. I was feeling all these feelings, and I think he could sense that I was having a lot of judgment toward the experience. And he was talking about how for them it's symbolism of life, right? That a life must end for other life to continue. And when we look at the world, that is inherently true. We see the world in a lot of ways dying in order to stabilize humanity, right? The world is burning so that humans can thrive. And the world is overpopulated, and people have to die in order to make room for more. And it's the starkness of the puppy and this idea of young life that is unfulfilled, life that has just begun, life that is revered, life is that it's almost extremely precious. It is the necessary contrast to that has to be there for this experience, right? It has to be a puppy for all the things that I mentioned, for all that it carries, all of the symbolism. And the puppies too are just, the puppy is the point. It's the cuteness. It's everyone wants to protect the puppy and keep the puppy. We're not gonna we're not gonna be cannibals and get a pry on and kill a baby, right? A human baby. But the puppy is the symbolism of that. And it's kind of we saw the movie, I don't know if you saw the movie Midsummer, right? But those in that culture, I assume it's fake, I don't know. But people, as they're getting old, will jump off and sacrifice themselves for the continuance of their group. And so he was telling me about this, and I was just filled with rage, right? And in my head, it was wrong. It was wrong that they did this. I was judging them, and I was thinking they were bad. And as I've really sat with that over the years, I realized it is part of their process. I can see it. I can see what they mean. I can understand it at some level. And life is important. Life is sacred. And I'll tell you another story with my friend who was in town. We went to South America together, and we were in Ecuador, I believe. And we were going on this really big swing, and God knows what the infrastructure was of this place, right? It's a very serious swing. You're swinging out literally off a cliff on, in front of this town. I believe it was in Banos, I believe. And we didn't have to sign a waiver. We didn't have to put on helmets. I'm just what is this? We could die at any moment. And so she's taking a video. She's having a great time. I am actually afraid. I'm very rarely afraid, but I'm scared. I mean, she's holding my hand, and I'm starting screaming, "Life isn't real! Life isn't real!" And that's the only way I'm getting through it, because life is real. Life does hurt. People are dying, and there's conflict, and it is scary, and it's terrible, and it breaks my heart. And also I am of the belief that this life is just one experience that my soul is having. And that doesn't mean sit back and allow injustice and detach from reality. It doesn't mean any of that. I believe you get to use your voice and advocate and vote and volunteer and help others when possible. So I'm not saying this from a lane of bypassing, but I am saying it from a higher level of perspective. This life is temporary, and these rules and these assignments and these judgments that we have about good and bad and right or wrong aren't empirically true. At the end of the day, you can totally disagree with me on you can disagree with me on anything. That's your prerogative, right? But I am never going to be swayed that there is some inherent good versus inherent bad. Life is just a series of choices. And I'm not saying we should go murder people either. And I'm certainly not going to do it, because I know for myself the feeling that I would have would just like not make life worth living anymore. And that story about the puppy really like shook something in me, where I was thinking, okay, like that is my judgment. And we judge other cultures, we judge other expressions as good and bad or right or wrong, but there is no truth out there. Like there's no, in my opinion, I don't think God is up there sitting like good, bad, A, F, you know, right, wrong, good person, bad person. Like people are multifaceted. There are good and bad aspects of everyone. There are things that I like and things I don't like about everyone. And those things that I don't like, I'm sure exist somewhere in me, because that's just like the nature of reality. So anyway, back to the story. These feelings of shame and guilt and judgment, they really keep you stuck. So when I'm looking at things, I'm never looking at, is this good or bad or right or wrong? I'm always looking at, is this useful? And so coming back, pulling the thread all the way back, you're probably like, how many detours is this lady going to go on? Coming back to this concept of David Hawkins and mapping these frequencies. The clearest example for me for this is around binge eating. So like, let's say you're someone who really struggles with binge eating, and you are, you know, you don't want to do it anymore. You tell yourself you're not going to. You have a food plan. You have certain like rules and structure in place. But one night you pull out a carton of ice cream and you eat the whole carton of ice cream. Okay, so normally what someone would do is think like, oh my God, I suck. I'm like, I can't stop doing this. I'm a fat cow. Like terrible things, right? Like food issues in particular can bring up some really mean inner dialogue. All right. So that's kind of someone's like baseline reaction. And so ideally, someone says, oh, I must have really wanted that ice cream, and I love myself, and I love my body, and I deserved it, and it was good, and like it's fine, everything is good, woo. That feels freaking delusional for a lot of people, right? I would say 99% of people. So the goal isn't to like get to ultimate love, acceptance, bliss, enlightenment, joy around your behavior, but instead of feeling like I suck, I'm fat, like I'm a loser, I can't do this, instead of being in that space of guilt and shame and judgment, what we can do is get into a space of neutrality, a space of observance. So I ate ice cream. I said I wasn't going to. I didn't want to. I did. Above that, curiosity. What is it about my day that really made me want to eat the ice cream? How can I set myself up for success moving forward so that this doesn't happen again and I'm able to honor my, you know, boundary or plan or whatever? Okay. See how that line of questioning, well, first of all, it's questions, right? Instead of judgments toward yourself, it's objective observances, right? Not I'm good or bad, I suck. It's just like this, it is what it is. This is what it is. And then curiosity, asking yourself questions. And so that's a space, that's an energy where you can move from. But what happens is most people get into the cycle of I suck, I'm fat, oh my God, I'm a loser, I can't do this. And then they do it again because they are in a space of no energy, because the frequency of those emotions, shame, guilt, judgment is so low, it keeps you trapped there. And then you repeat the behavior. That's why people say like you can't change what you can't accept. If you're gonna beat yourself up about something, you won't be able to change it literally from a scientific standpoint because of the frequency of those emotions. And so even though I didn't think I was gonna answer the question like how can you use science to change your limiting beliefs, I kind of did. I kind of did. That's one way you can use science to change your limiting beliefs, is by recognizing that when you get into the space of limiting beliefs and those beliefs are like flagellating, that the only way to shift them is to get to a space of observation and curiosity. So instead of, oh my God, I'm such a bad person, I suck, blah, 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 acknowledging the behavior, whatever it is that you didn't do, right? Taking ownership of it. I did do this. And then getting curious about how you can set yourself for success moving forward. Also getting curious, like, where did this come from? Like what's coming up for me around this, right? What are the deeper emotional implications of my behavior that I don't like? And just being a scientist in all of it, right? Limiting beliefs aren't woo. Like we can see these things mapped out in a scientific context. And so tying it back all the way to the beginning, thinking about, instead of feeling like, oh my God, I suck, why do I not feel good today? I want to feel different. Like it's the Lunar New Year. Just acknowledging it is. Like I woke up feeling a little foggy. I thought it was going to be sunny. It's a really cloudy day. I'm feeling a little off because I know that I like my schedule to start at the zeros and instead it started at the 30. And just like trusting myself is huge in this too. Because here's what used to happen. I would want to do something, right? Or I would say I was going to do something XYZ, whether it be like, oh, it's time for me to record a podcast or create content or send out this email. And then I would get into space of feeling weird. And the pendulum swinging the other way is like not doing anything, right? Or in the beginning of my business thinking more like, oh, I could just visualize and meditate and clients would come, but also spending like hours on content and perseverating on the caption and thinking I needed to have the perfect word and say it the right way, that was going to be like, if I could just replicate perfectionism in my business, that was going to allow me to get like clients, etc. And now finding the middle balance of like not forcing myself to do things that I truly like don't want to do when I don't want to do them, because that was how I burned myself out. But last year, but also trusting myself, like it's gonna get done. Like even if, here's the thing, I'm so consistent that even if it doesn't get done today, I know that it's gonna get done because I can trust myself to execute and to show up. And then also remembering like the energy that you put into something is going to affect the energy that is creating the output. So instead of showing up and like forcing myself to record a podcast on something that I just like wasn't feeling, I was like, you know what? I made a commitment to this podcast, this experiment for a year. So I'm going to show up in the commitment and I'm just going to have a real conversation about what to do when you're feeling off. And so for me, it is like honoring the feeling, acknowledging that it's there. I think another big thing is we try to like figure out why. And I just don't find why to be a useful question. I don't know if I shared on here, but last year was the first year I had like, I don't want to say a problem client. Like I don't want to assign like a judgment toward her. But it became, she was not the right fit for this retreat. And that became clear. Okay. And she really wanted to go down this like path with some things were coming up in her life. And she really wanted to ask all these why questions. And I'm just of the belief that I don't feel why is a useful question because it asks us to create an explanation and a definitive answer where I don't think life has one. And that's frustrating. I really wanted to know why people have done certain things to me, you know? And I don't think they know. I don't think there is a known because there's so many confounding factors. Like it's some crazy percentage, like 97% of human behavior occurs or like stems from a subconscious place. So even you and what you order at a restaurant or the text that you send to your mom or how you speak to your child, like it is most of our behavior, the vast majority of our behavior is subconscious. And so to perseverate on why I just don't find is a useful question. I prefer to think about questions in terms of what and how. And so giving yourself the permission of like what's coming up for me instead of trying to figure out like, why do I feel like this? I mean, there are a million reasons. I don't know. I woke up foggy. My Whoop said I got a good sleep score. Maybe I'm feeling a lot of pressure for the new year. Perhaps like I've been a little bit too in the weeds of looking at like what Sagittarius' year going to look like on, TikTok and Instagram. I mean, who knows where this is coming from, but it's here regardless. And then instead of thinking about why, just like, how do I want to move forward from there? What would feel good to me right now? And I think that's it. That's where I want to leave it. When you're feeling off, when you're not feeling it, instead of being like, man, I suck. I don't want to feel like this. This is awful. I should be doing something else. Don't shit on yourself. Don't judge yourself. Don't get stuck in trying to figure out like, why do I feel this way? Instead, ask yourself either like, how do I want to move forward? Or what would feel really good to do right now? Because here's the thing too, we have the sunk cost fallacy about like it has to get done today or right now. First of all, I can almost guarantee you whatever it is like doesn't have to be done right now unless it's like you're listening to this since April 15th and you haven't fucking paid your taxes. I'm like, baby, you do need to get on it. But 99% of things don't have to happen right now. It will get done because you can trust yourself. And if you feel like you can't, come talk to me. So how do you want to move forward from here? And what would feel really good to you right now? I would like to take my dog for a walk, and so I shall. And that's what I'm going to do moving forward and see the little movement, what shifts. Thank you for joining me for this it wasn't really a chisme, but it was certainly an unscripted peek behind the mirror into the wonderland that is my consciousness. So thank you so much for joining me. Save this one for when you are feeling weird. And until next time, kid. That's the end of today's trip. But remember, the real magic has always been inside of you. If this episode landed, send it to a friend who's ready to step into their next level. And make sure you're following the show so you never miss a dose. I'll be back again soon with another day on the path to your most limitless life. And until then, trust yourself, follow your intuition, and keep asking, how good can it get?